Hi, everybody. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the UTeach Create Performance Task Module to facilitate the entire Create Performance task. All right. I also am going to show you that I added a couple of assignments because I want my students to see that you can use AI on the Create Performance task in an ethical way. I like to use it in a way for them to make sure that their programs are going to fill the requirements of the Create Performance task, but also I like to use AI to improve on their written responses. So let's just jump right into it. So our Create Performance Task module starts with the pacing guide, and then we have 7 assignments that the students need to finish, okay? And I will walk you through this as we go on, but you'll notice that I also added 2 assignments using ChatGPT on the Create task and then using ChatGPT to assess the written response. Now, we all know now that College Board said it's okay for students to use AI to develop their program. They can't use AI to do the written response or the video or anything else they're going to put in to the digital portfolio as part of their PPR. But what we can use AI for is to make sure our students are on the right track, that their program does use the right procedure, that it does use the right list, and that it helps them answer the written response questions. Now, in your school, you may block ChatGPT. All right. So even though College Board it says it's okay for them to use it, it just might not be something they can use due to circumstance. Remember the create performance task, all of it has to be facilitated in the classroom. Okay. So if ChatGPT isn't available in the classroom, then the students can't use it for the create performance task. All right. But I added those 2 assignments to our module, and I'll show them to you as well. They're very basic, but it just really is a way to integrate AI in an ethical way to this task. So let's start with our pacing guide. Okay. So from start to finish, it's going to take anywhere from 18 to 21 class periods, 50-minute class periods to facilitate the entire create performance task. But that's not really true. And that's because assignment CT7, the written response, that assignment should not be done when you're doing the create performance test during the year. This CT7 assignment is specifically designed for your students to do before the actual testing day in May. All right, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand, they need some review on how to answer those written response questions. That's when they would do this assignment. Okay, so that's why I actually like to take away those 1 to 3 assignments. So you're really talking anywhere from 15, to 17 class periods to do this. All right. And when you facilitate it using our materials, you will review assignments 1, 2, and 3, CT 1, 2, and 3 with your students. Okay. It will take you anywhere from 4 to 5 class periods to do it. But during those 3 assignments, we review everything we need to with the students, the scoring guidelines, what's expected of them, what's expected of the teacher. We go over some samples provided by College Board, samples provided by UTeach, and then they start to plan out their create performance task. Then they do assignments CT4, CT5, and CT6 on their own. Okay. CT4 is when they're working on the program. CT5 is when they do a little bit of written response practice, and we'll explain why they're doing written response practice then, but then also in assignment CT7. And then in CT6, of course, they're going to upload everything they need to the digital portfolio. Okay, they need to upload that PDF of all their program code. They need to upload their procedure, their list, okay, and they need to upload everything, their video, all to the digital portfolio. Okay, and that's what we will do through the course of our Create Task module. It'll take your students through the entire process. All right, so let's start with CT1. Then we're going to review CT2 and CT3, and then I'm going to pause and throw a little bit of AI flavor into the Create Task. Okay, so first thing we want to review here, and I'm going to open this up right now the way your students will see it, is In CT1, the first thing we do is we review the digital portfolio with your students, okay? You're able to collapse down the screen, and we literally take them through everything that's expected of them. Now, if you're already using AP Classroom and you've already set up your AP Classroom for your students, then it'll already be set up in your digital portfolio. All right, but what we do is we walk them through the digital portfolio, what they need to submit to it, how to submit things, what are the requirements. Okay. The next page, and this one is a um, really critical one for your students to understand. We cover a lot in this document. Okay. The first thing we review is what is expected of them as a student to requirements on the create performance task. Now, we don't like to overthink this too much. And that's what your students are going to do. They think the create performance task has to be this great game, this really, complex project. It doesn't need to be that. When you do the create performance task, your students need to know that they need to just fulfill the requirements according to the scoring guidelines. All right. And the first thing that your students will be told is that they cannot collaborate on the video or anything they do in the digital portfolio with another student. Okay, it says the video and PPR that the student submits has to be done individually without any collaboration from a partner or AI. So, what do they need to what do they need to do for the create performance task? Well, the first thing is they need to make up a program code. And notice that can be done with another person in the class, or it can be done with AI. Now, they need to make the video of their program running independently, and all those code segments that they upload to the digital portfolio, that needs to be done independently as well. So what does this program need to contain? Okay. And this is where we need to bring our kids back down to earth here. It's not a complex program. The program needs to have input. Okay. It needs to have some sort of input. It needs to contain a list that is integral to the functioning of the program. And then it needs to have a procedure. And that procedure needs to pass a parameter through it. And the procedure itself has to contain sequence selection and iteration. All right. Now, the students are going to have to develop calls or test cases to show what their program does. All right. And those calls or those test cases are going to be the parameters that they pass through their procedure. All right. And then in the very end of the program, there needs to be some sort of output. So now let me back up now and just review this with you one more time with less computerese in it. So the input, the program needs to have something that they put into it. So the one program I'm going to talk about in this video a lot would be like, a contact list program where you would put in somebody's name, then their town, their phone number, possibly their address. So when we talk about input, that's what we're talking about. You have to input something into the program. And it needs to have a list. Now, if I'm doing a contact list program, well, then, yeah, the information I'm going to be collecting in my list is integral to the functioning of the program. I put in a person's name, I collect their town, I collect their phone number. Well, now I can actually sort that list and pull out everyone on the list from that town, or pick out people who all have the same 3-digit phone number to start. So these are ways where the list is integral to the functioning of the program, and that's what your students need to have. If it's just a list that collects, say, names, like it's a video game, and when it starts, you put in a name, but then never does anything with the name, okay? That's not good. They'll get 0 points, okay? Now, the procedure. The procedure actually has to have sequence selection and iteration in the procedure, and it needs to pass a parameter, which is why making up a program where they need to sort through a list or a data set is really the best way to go. You can make up a procedure where if you put this in, it goes through the list, and if it's on the list, it'll make the program do something else. Okay. The sequence selection and iteration actually has to be in that procedure. It doesn't have to be in the main algorithm. Back in the day, when they first started doing this exam, it was okay to just have sequence selection and iteration in the actual algorithm where the procedure is called. Not anymore. that sequence selection and iteration has to be under the algorithm in the procedure. All right. And then this is important. Your student has to make up test calls to show that their program works properly and to demonstrate it working. Those test calls is what they're going to put as parameters into the procedure. So if I'm doing a contact list program, to show that it's working properly, I would put in someone's name. Okay. Now, if I wanted to show that it wasn't working properly, maybe I put in the number 787 instead of a name. Well, what should happen if I put that into my program? Well, nothing should happen because it's not a name. And that's okay. College Board allows the two things for your program to do is demonstrate it working and not working. Okay, it's not, but as a teacher, I would want at least my students to add some code to that program that says, hey, you typed in a number, you were supposed to type in someone's name, try again. Okay. And then the output. Okay. The test cases or those calls are demonstrating the output. Okay. So that's what the program needs to contain, those very few elements, and that can get them a perfect score. All right. Now, the video that they have to make. I always like to say it's not a requirement by College Board, but it is recommended that whatever they show in the video is what they're going to talk about later on in the written response. So if your test calls are going to be Fred Smith, that's the name I'm entering into my contact list program, and the number 666 to show that it doesn't work. All right, that's what I want to show in my video. I want to show those two test calls and then talk about those test calls. I want to make it easy for the AP reader who's going to grade this, that all my ducks are in a row. They're going to see in this video what I'm going to talk about in the written response and make it easy for them to give me a perfect score. Now, the video will not be accepted by the digital portfolio if it's not in one of these formats, if it's longer than a minute, and if it's bigger than 30 megabytes. And one thing that they started doing a couple years ago is you are not allowed to use any distinguishing characteristics about yourself. So not the name of your school in the program, the name of yourself, the name of your teacher, nothing like that. And you're not allowed to narrate it using your voice. You can narrate it by putting in closed captioning, but no voice narration. That's not fair to students who don't speak English as their primary language. All right. Now the PPR, this is what you're uploading to the digital portfolio. All right. The first thing they need to do is the program code segment of that procedure. So they're going to take a picture of their procedure and they're going to upload that. And then they're going to take a picture of where that procedure is called in their program. And those are the two things that they put right here. They're going to take a picture of the list. And then they're also going to be taking a picture of where the list is used in their program. All right. That is what they need to upload to the digital portfolio for their PPR. This is important. Please put a star next to this. When they're taking pictures of their code segments and uploading it to the PPR, their code segments can have 0 code comments, no code comments whatsoever. All right. And it's, we tell them when they write a program to put code comments in there to tell us what each section of their code is doing. That's great, but it cannot be on the PPR. What they upload to the digital portfolio can just be the code, no code comments. If it does have code comments on it on testing day, they will print out the PPR. Look, when they see it has code comments, they will throw it away, and the student will not be able to partake in the written response portion of the exam for that day. Okay, we said it. All right, so that is what we start off with. And then we actually are going to open up and review the scoring guidelines with them. Okay. And the one thing we need to review with them is plain and simple. There is no partial credit. You either do everything that they're asking for and get the 1 point, but if you missed one thing, you don't get the point. So for the video, you need to show input, the program functioning, and the output. If all you do is show the input and the program running, but you don't show the output, you will not get the point. Okay. The program has to have a list, a procedure, a call to the procedure, selection, iteration. Okay. It has to have all those things. All right. If you don't have one of those things, let's say it doesn't have a list, you get no points. Okay. Next, purpose and function. All right, remember, the purpose of the program is who is it created to help. Okay, the purpose of Facebook is actually to unite people, to bring people closer together. How does it function? It functions by people uploading pictures, sharing videos, all right, clicking on advertisements. So that's the difference between purpose and function. And that's what your students have to talk about for this line. Now, the first three lines of the scoring guidelines, these first 3 points are the most attainable for your students. As we get into the nitty gritty of the next 3 points, it becomes way more challenging for your students. So the next line, okay? This one, they have to talk about the algorithmic development. So they have to talk about the number of times that the body or the iteration statement will execute. They need to describe the iteration. All right. They need to describe the loop. All right. So right in here is where we're going to start talking about the whole entire procedure, the parameters that we pass through it. Your students are going to have to be able to say, like, how would I have to do this program differently if I didn't use this particular procedure? Okay. And I couldn't pass the parameters through it. And you could see here, all right, that this statement, okay, needs to be contained in the procedure. So this is all important stuff here. We're talking about the procedure. We're talking about, did you submit the correct one? And we're talking about, can your students talk about it in detail? Okay. The next one is talking about those errors in testing. What are the test calls that you're using that you're going to pass through your procedure to show that it works properly or does not work properly, or that it does one thing and does another thing, right? And that's what they're going to show here, okay? And they have to talk about it in detail, all right? And then the very last thing we're talking about, all right, we need to talk about the list, all right? How is the list integral to the functioning of the program? In other words, if you didn't use a list, how would the code have to be written differently in order to make the program function? All right. That's the scoring guideline. It's out of 6 points. And your students need to realize that it's an all or nothing game. All right. Now, as we move through this assignment, okay, you will notice that one of the most important things we have for your students is the create task definition and coding examples page. This particular page, okay, is for your students because you can't answer questions for them. Okay, you're not allowed to review their code. You're not allowed to talk about procedures that pass parameters. You're not allowed to talk about iteration. Your students are on their own. So we include this page over here, which is literally just coding tasks, create task definitions and coding examples. We give them, since we use Scratch and Python, right? We give them what function the definition is, what purpose is, then what a program code segment should look like that contains those elements. What does input look like for Scratch? What does it look like for Python? What does output look like for Scratch? What does it look like for Python? And then here, just more definitions. What list should you be using? Okay, what type of procedure, right? We need this type of procedure, one that has an argument or a parameter that we can pass through it. That's the make a block we need to use. So this page right here is for your students to constantly coming back to answer questions that you can't answer for them. All right. Now, I did a pretty deep dive into that first one because it's the most important one. Now, the second one that we have here is the samples, our review samples that we have. All right, now College Board provided some samples as well. All right, and you see over here, we have their scoring guideline. But if you click on the assignment, we actually provided a perfect score from UTeach, one for Scratch, one for Python. Okay, and I'll come over here to the UTeach Create one that we have for Python. All right, and you can see here, we provide you with everything. We have the contest list program. All right, we hit run. It runs down here. Would you like to enter a contact? Yes. How many contacts would you like to enter? 3. Name, type name, then enter. Okay. and then the phone number, and then the town. All right. And then it would ask you to do it again and again. So you could see that we right over here have the program working for the students to try out. All right. We show them what their program code PDF should look like. And it's right over here. And now what the PPR should look like. Okay. And notice the PPR just has the code segments that we need with no code comments on it. All right, so we like to do all of these things we show you here in our sample, but more importantly, we give them a sample scoring guidelines, okay? With scoring samples that they can use and answer that we know are perfect scores. And we'll come back to that in 1 second. All right, so this is a good example. We have question 1, and then question 2A, 2B, 2C, okay? And those are the questions that they're going to need to answer. So let's just hop back quickly because assignment CT3, which will be the last one you cover with your students before you cut the umbilical cord and send them out there to do it on their own, is a planning document. It's meant for the students to come up with so that they have a plan and they submit this to you so that you know what they're supposed to be working on. All right. And this document is very straightforward. If they're collaborating with a person, who, and if it's AI, they have to write AI right here. I'm collaborating with ChatGPT. I'm going to be using it on my create performance test. They need to cite it unless it's plagiarism. Okay. What programming language are they going to use? What's the purpose, the input, the output, the list requirement, the procedure? Okay. And then they kind of review someone else's work. We do a quick peer review. All right. And they let them know, like, I think this project is doable, might be a little difficult. Hey, this doesn't meet the requirements of what we're doing. It's a cool game, but you're going to get like no points on the scoring guidelines. So it's a good way to give them a little bit of feedback. Okay. Now, the next thing I like to do with my students before I send them out there to start CT4 is just quickly show them how to use AI to come up with a sample create performance task. Or just like, is this a good idea? All right. So, right over here, you'll notice that I have this assignment and I ask them to open up ChatGPT and I tell them that I want to ask ChatGPT to create a program for me. But here's the problem. If you just say, hey, ChatGPT, create a program for me for the create performance task, most likely, number one, it's going to make something that doesn't have what you need it to have. Okay. And it's also probably not going to have, the type of code that a 10th grade student can understand or that a 10th grade student would write. All right. So you'll see here, the first thing I like to show my students is you want to focus on a program that has these simple things. And notice, what are some programs that would hit what I've been talking about? A list, a procedure that passes parameters. I already told you, something that involved data, a data set, an inventory list. And look at what ChatGPT suggests. If I actually just type in, like, what would be some good things to do for the create performance task? A simple calculator program, a basic quiz game, a number guessing game, a to-do list, a basic contact list, temperature converter, simple voting system, a basic alarm clock. All right. But more importantly, you need to make sure to instruct ChatGPT to write the program using a list, a procedure that passes a parameter, and it's written so a 10th grade student can understand it. Okay. Now, this way, your student can kind of talk to ChatGPT and be like, hey, I like this program. Okay, so let's just show you the next thing I do with my students. Okay, the next thing I do with my students is I literally show them here. I want you to take, let's ask ChatGPT, make an alarm clock program. All right, so I asked ChatGPT, make a program that uses a list to store multiple alarms and also has a function with a parameter to check each one. All right. And it says this version is designed to be understandable for a beginner coding student. All right. So that's really cool, right? So now if I were to actually go back here and copy, I want ChatGPT to write a Python program, and I just copy this prompt and paste it in here, okay? You'll see that it's going to write a simple Python program, okay? But like I said, it's probably not exactly what I want. So now I want to give it that instruction, right? Make sure this program can be written in a way so that a student can understand it. So there you go. It now says, here's a version of this alarm clock program that incorporates a list, a procedure that passes a parameter, and it's easy for a 10th grade student to understand. All right, and then you can see it's making that program up for me. So I always like to say this, okay? 35% of the kids fail this exam, okay? And one of the things as teachers that we're responsible for doing is to teach all of our students, even the ones that sometimes it's difficult to teach to because they don't want to be taught. All right. AI allows us to go up to a student who hasn't done anything all year and say to them, hey, how about you learn a little bit of Python over the course of this week? We use AI to write the program, then you study the program. And you could even do this. Hey, ChatGPT, explain this program in fine detail on how the list works and the procedure. All right. And then you'll see it's actually going to start breaking down the program into the list and talk to your student exactly how this works. So even if your students did their own program, they can still put it into ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to give it feedback. ChatGPT is the best feedback machine anyone can ever have. Okay. So why not use it? Right. This is what's also going to help them for the written response. ChatGPT is telling them in more detail how the program works. Okay. So once again, we have students who maybe haven't been, doing all the work they should. This is the olive branch. Let's use ChatGPT, learn a little bit of Python. Let's get that create performance task done so you have a chance to sit, you know, and then pass the exam at the end of the year. Let's re-engage these students. Okay, so you can see how I'm using ChatGPT to make a summary of the program, more details about it. All right. And I like to do this assignment with my students. I say, let's try it out. All right, so my students would come in here. They would have a chance to copy and paste the entire program in here and then try it out. Okay, so copy, paste. I think I forgot one line at the bottom there. Yeah, my main. Okay. So then I can come here, run my code, and look, my program is working down here. And all that good information that ChatGPT was giving me, I can now put in this assignment and start to study it. Okay. So there's a good way of using AI, not to do the actual project, but to proofread your students' program, give them some hints on how it can be written more basic, and then break it down and tell them what each part means in more detail. Okay. So now I've showed my students how to do all of this. It is now time to go to assignment CT4 and to let them do their own create performance task. Now, in our curriculum, if they're using Scratch, they're going to do CT4, CT5, CT6. If they're using Python, they're going to do CT4, 1, CT 5.1, and CT 6.1. They do not do both of them. And you'll see the minute your student, okay, opens up this assignment, it's the first thing it says. This is for Python only. Okay, you will not complete the Scratch one. You're just doing one create performance task. And we review with them once again, what are the guidelines to complete? Okay, we talk about plagiarism, the acceptable uses of AI. All right, all of these things that your students need to be aware of one last time before they start the program. And then here's where your students will live for basically the majority of the time they're doing the program. They're going to type their code up here. They're going to run it right here, and the terminal window is here. And this is where they'll be doing their screen captures. This is where they'll be doing their screen recordings. This is where they'll be doing everything that they need to do to upload to the digital portfolio. Okay. All right. So your students will work in here until they are done with CT4. They then move on to CT5. And everyone always says to us, hey, why do the students need to do a written response here when they don't do the written response to testing day? And the reason is because how are they supposed to really know what to upload to the digital portfolio if they don't have a really good grasp on their program? And that's what they're doing here. They are going to reiterate again the purpose, the function, the input, the output. They're going to talk about the list. What's the name? What's the data in it? How that list manages complexity. They're going to do the same thing for the procedure. What does it do? Where's it called in the algorithm? What are the test calls or those test cases? And what's being tested by them? And what's the result of each one of those test calls? When I put in John Smith, it made it a contact list. If I typed in 666, it didn't work properly. All right. And that's what they do for CT5. They just get a good idea of their program so that when they come now to CT6, they will now do this. Here's where they upload everything to the digital portfolio. All right, so the first thing we do is we show your students, okay, how to make, how to take their program code and make a PDF of all their program code. And then where that gets uploaded to the digital portfolio. And then they do it here in Codio as well. So us as the teachers can look in the gradebook and see what they're doing without talking to them. We can track student work without doing one-on-one conversations. We can see that 4 kids have used the wrong procedure and then make a general class announcement to everyone, not just to those few kids. See, that's the gray area where you can help your students by making general class announcements. But how would you make these announcements unless you can see their work and you can see their work in Codio? Okay. Next thing, they need to do the video. So we literally show them here how to make a video of their program running and then how to upload it to the digital portfolio and to Codio. Okay, we then do the PPR. We show them how to take the pictures of their code segments and how to put those into the PPR and upload that to the digital portfolio. And then we tell them that they are done. Yay! All right. And now your students are done with the create performance task until it's time to take the exam. And then they have to answer those 4 written response questions about their program. And what I like to do is come back and use ChatGPT. All right, and let me show you how I would do that. Now, our assignment CT7 is using real College Board questions. Okay, these are exactly from the College Board. So these are their first 4 original ones that they put out. These are from 2024. These are specific questions as well. And then we have one more set over here. Okay. So these are all actual written response questions provided by College Board. So if you just come to this first one, remember I told you in our review sample assignments, we have perfect scores. At least we think we have perfect scores. See, you could have your students do the written response practice CT7 assignment and then paste their responses into ChatGPT and ask, hey, ChatGPT, does this meet the requirement to get the points according to the scoring guidelines? So let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay. So you could see here, I can cut and paste. Does this answer earn the point according to the scoring guidelines? And then just cut in the answer. So here's ChatGPT, sorry, put that in there. And now I'm going to paste in a response from one of our review samples. Okay, you'll see here, let's start with our UTeach one, because I told you that was a perfect score. And I told you we give you a written response sample here. So if I come over here and I say question 1, the program is for anyone to keep a list. I can come here to question 1, okay, and then just cut and paste it right into ChatGPT. Copy, paste, boom, hit enter. And then it says, let's evaluate the response against the scoring guidelines, okay? And then what does it say? This is adequate for meeting that criteria. And it actually breaks it down for us, all right? So your students are going to improve with the written response by using ChatGPT to improve on it, all right? If it didn't meet the requirements to earn the point, I would simply say to ChatGPT, can you redo my response and make it look like it's written as from a 10th grader to earn the point this time, and it'll tell you what you need to do differently. Okay. So that's a great review. Like here, let's come down to maybe this one over here, question 2B. Okay. Same thing. Let's highlight the whole thing, copy it. We're going to paste it in here. But first, remember, what do we have to write before that? Ask it to check. Does this meet the scoring requirements? Okay, and we do it again, and now it's going to evaluate it. And I just love how it breaks it down step by step. Okay, and then to see, does it do it and does it meet the requirement? Okay, so this is how you can add AI to our Create Performance Task module in order to improve your students' project ideas and their written responses. All right, so as always, I am here. Reach out if you have any questions. All right. The reason why we are not including these assignments that I created in our Create Performance Task module at the current time is because AI is allowed on the exam, but it's not really encouraged. It's not like it's a requirement. So until AI is a requirement for the Create Performance Task, we're not going to embed it in our module. All right. But you do know how to edit assignments. You do know how to create your own assignments. And if you are really interested, I can always share this assignment with you as well. All right, the AI ChatGPT assignments that I made up. So thank you for watching this extended video that takes you through the Create Performance Task module from start to finish. I hope your students stay focused on what the program requirements are and get a perfect score. Thanks, everybody.